No one can interrupt my groove today. Been watching gray skies move away. I just don't think that I can lose, and I might just take a cruise and let the sunshine play. Something more, something new, something new.
Welcome back, boys and girls, for another episode of The Approach. As always, joined by my good buddy, Drew. Drew, how are you living this evening?
Doing well. Happy, of course, to be joined by you on a Monday. Hope all is well with you and everyone else. You had a good weekend?
Had a great weekend. Harbortown, doesn't disappoint. Got a playoff. I know JT, Colin, DJ didn't have, and Fitz, which was personal, didn't have a great week, but Cream kind of rose to the top there with the Spieth Cantlay playoff. That was sure fun. And gosh, Harbortown looked great. What are your thoughts as we look back at Hilton Head?
Yeah, how brutal Friday was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they showed the difference in par between Thursday, Saturday, and Friday, and I think they were like 136 over par on Friday, which what happens when the wind picks up around that place. But to your point, Cantlay, Spieth in the playoffs, Shane Lowry was right there. So you had some big names kind of going after it. And really it seemed like nobody wanted it, right? Spieth gets in the house and really nobody comes up and tries to take it from him. So, but yeah, it was a good Sunday, man. A good way to kind of cap off an Easter weekend, and especially with the Spieth win.
Yeah, no doubt. And we were talking about that, you're a big Spieth guy, and you gave him, I think your buddy said an outright, and he was heavy in my player pool. I almost wrote him up on the Game Theory article because he was projected so low, and I went with Hatton instead, and Hatton did okay. But had plenty of Spieth, and that was nice. Just I had over 60% of Fitzpatrick. So I had some great 5 of 6s. It was just tough. Because I had Varner too. It was a good week for the Game Theory because a lot of chalk bounced, but unfortunately I was on some of that chalk. But the best man won clearly on or last weekend. Spieth couldn't hole anything the first 3 days. His Saturday 18th hole, like 18 or 6 inches, whatever it was, putt. I thought he lost it at that point. I was like, well, he'll have another good week, but we'll miss out on the win. But thankfully, he was holing out of every bunker he got into last week.
Yeah. I mean, just the way that it began on Sunday, right? And to your point, Saturday, he gets up, he has 12 feet for birdie, ends up walking away with 5. It's kind of like just a mental hiccup by him not taking his time. But then when we get to Sunday and he eagles the first 2 par 5s of the day, gets himself tied for the lead. And then you're starting to think, man, that putt on Saturday afternoon is really going to come back to haunt him here. And it's just wild the fact that he still lost 2.5 strokes on the green and ended up winning. That's how his ball striking has kind of just completely turned for the better. And I know that you and I have talked on how his pre-shot routine looks funny and it's awkward, but he's getting the club in the right spots. And again, if he's hitting the ball well, you would think that the putting eventually comes around. I mean, hell, I know he lost almost 7.5 strokes at Valero a few weeks ago, so it's just not been there. So for him to be able to get it done, especially against the competition coming down the stretch, was certainly impressive. And again, it shows his short game on the playoff. They both hit in the bunker. Of course, Cantlay unfortunately has the fried egg. Spieth hits it up in a tap-in range. All the pressure's on Patrick Cantlay, and Spieth just makes those kind of shots, gets himself out of trouble, and it might not always look pretty, but he's definitely swinging the club well at this point.
Yeah, and last week we talked about Spieth when we ran through the board, and one thing I said, it was a classic case of recency bias. He missed the cut at the Masters, the first time doing it, but he was, a lot of people were touting him at the Masters because of how well he played at Valero. Maybe crushed it tee to green that week. And then misses a cut at the Masters, and then he's all the way back down to like 4% owned. And we know how much variance there is in golf, and the Masters is a whole different thing. It's great course history there, but hard not to at least include some Jordan Spieth at 4% or sub 5% owned at a course he's actually done well before, and also showing kind of great form ball striking. So, and I think it's such a good notice to, if you believe in something and you're committed to it, then just keep up with it. Because I was watching Golf Channel today, and we know for the last 3 or 4 months, everyone has been critiquing his swing and his pre-shot routine. Every announcer has been talking about how he's in his own head and he just needs to free it up. And he didn't listen to all that bullshit, and he kept doing it. And he's
Right.
now hitting the ball great. So,
Yeah.
and then I'll just say one more thing. I was listening to the Golf Channel today, and they totally flipped their script, saying that Jordan's now going to compete in every major the rest of the year because his ball striking is where it needs to be. I'm like, gosh, they're eating their words there a little bit.
Yeah, and it's so easy to see what he's doing with the pre-shot routine and think, okay, he's wandering, he's trying to find something. But then you look at the strokes gain statistics, and I know we don't have a lot for the Masters, but just Valero, I mean, 10.9 tee to green last week, 13.3 tee to green. Like, his game was trending in this direction, right? And that's why when we talked last Monday, I wasn't on the train, but it's like it's coming together. I can't hop off now, and
Right.
and I bet Spieth kind of blindly to an extent. So it's nice when things work out for me like this, but it's definitely trending. And I do think to that point, in course, Golf Channel, you want to talk about recency bias, how somebody wins one time and it's like, oh, how many majors is he going to win? And,
Right.
that's kind of the game that they play. But when you look at the major championships and the venues this year, they do really set up nicely for Jordan Spieth. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, I think that this narrative that he was searching for stuff like Spieth can compete anywhere. And I think as long as he keeps hitting the ball like this, he'll get it hopefully going with the putter. But yeah, he could have a big year. And again, it's hard to see guys winning 3-4 times a year. I mean, take out Scotty Scheffler, what he's done. It's just not the norm anymore on tour. You win 2 times, you win 3 times. It's a player of the year caliber year. It's just the competition's so widespread at this point. You can't expect guys to win every week. And Spieth's always under a microscope. That's because he's a polarizing player and just the way he goes about his business. But yeah, just awesome to see him win. I think anytime he wins, it's good for golf and definitely good for the tournament last week.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, Harbortown looked great, and what a fun course. And gosh, I thought Spieth was in. Like, we'll finish talking about it. We'll turn the page, but I thought he was dead. I know we after Saturday on 18, but on 9 yesterday, he hit a great drive. They got such an unlucky break in the bunker right against the lip. I wasn't there, but gosh, it kind of looked like he could go at the pin and get it out that way. Elected to go right. Bogey, 3-putted that hole, I think. Got a bogey, or I think he 2-putted. But anyway, I thought he was out, but like you said, nobody wanted to take it from him, and he just sat atop of the leaderboard for about an hour, and nobody got up there except for Cantlay on 17. But yeah, good for him. Now we turn the page to a unique event. It's not as a bettor and a DFSer. It's not the most exciting event to do. It's it's a cut event, but it's almost like a no cut with the field. It's hard to cap. It's hard to get accurate ownership projections. It's just tricky. What's your overall thoughts as we start thinking about strategy for the Zurich?
Well, yeah, to your point, it's definitely hard because now we're adding a whole different person and element into conversation, right? And then we throw in the 2 separate scenarios with the best ball and an alternate shot. And so for me, it's like, so the favorites right now are Hovland and Morikawa, which I find interesting. Like, great team, right? Like, on paper they should win, but their flaws in their games are so similar. And so when you're looking at it from like that perspective, it's like, is that something that you take high in consideration in? Or if we're talking about DFS showdown, right? Are there certain players that we can identify that we think are set up better for alternate shot on a specific day, or that are favored in best ball, right? And so there's guys that they're teams that I'll be looking for in doing that. Are you're looking at best ball scenario, you want guys that birdie or better, right? You want guys that can make a lot of birdies. And then on the flip side, you go to the next day and it's kind of bogey avoidance guys, right? Because you can get yourself and get your partner in trouble with alternate shot. And that's why we see a lot of the 58s and whatnot on Thursday. And then you're just trying to hold on Friday and Sunday. So it's definitely a tougher element with handicapping it. I'll be interested to see how it shakes out as far as ownership goes, because I mean, with those top 2 teams with Vic and Morikawa and X and Cantlay, especially Cantlay coming off a nice week, I do like some of the other options at the top of the board. But do you find any benefit in potentially kind of playing the two different sides as far as format goes? Is there any benefit there? I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly you're looking at to kind of gain an advantage, but I don't know if there's one there or not, but there certainly may be.
Well, I really love your point about like I'm leaning heavily on birdie or better, just like we've seen this event in the past. And even if look at your own like club, member or member guest, how you have to score because we know. But yeah, so I'm really leaning on the birdie or better kind of percentages, people who can kind of score really well, even on the second day when it's alternate shot. People are going to go low. You need to go low to kind of win this event as a team. And again, it's just hard to judge. We could throw strokes gain data out there. And so I'm really just leaning heavily on what are people not going to do. It's hard to just see Victor and Colin, not one of the highest owned. That can they win? Yeah, they're super talented. Cantlay, we know how he's kind of trending nicely, played really well, at the Masters, at the Sunday especially, and then played well last week. Also, Xander's kind of sneaky, kind of playing well. And so I kind of prefer, because I think they'll be severely underowned, and maybe severely is not the right word, but I think they'll be underowned. I think people are going to start their lineups with Hovland and Morikawa and then go right to either Neiman or Gooch and Homa group. And so Neiman is with Mito. That's the next click for a lot of people. The salary structure where you could put in like a Billy Ho, but then you're getting low key in the 6K group. The other thing I'll just say, you don't have ownership projections right now, but the Davis Riley Willie Z group seems to be getting a lot of steam right now. They may be chalk. That might be everyone's third selection. So I'm just trying to imagine how people are picking. This is not a week. I don't feel like you should max enter. I think you kind of limit your exposure here. You do a single entry or 3-entry max. Not the best week for DFS. Any thoughts strategy wise you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's to your point. It's way more difficult because now everything's condensed into a team aspect, right? So there's not going to be as many lineups. There's going to be way more duplicated lineups, I guess I'll say, because to your point, I think people will go down the board like that. It's to your point. I don't like this week for DFS. I'll play some just because I have to have some skin in the game. Right. Just because it's going to be fun, right? And I do really like this tournament from a viewership perspective. And sometimes that's the way it shakes out, man. Like sometimes these different events aren't the greatest from a DFS perspective, and sometimes they are. This one's a little bit different. We don't see the team aspect quite, very often. So yeah, I definitely with you limit exposure. Don't go crazy this week. And I also think, how much do you read into strokes gain data? Because it's completely different from what we see week to week, right? It's the best ball. Guys can essentially fire one OB on Thursday and be picked up by their teammate, right? It's hard to take all the data into consideration this week because it's not going to hold true to an extent because it's not the same kind of golf. We're going to see on Friday conservative play, right? Guys hitting iron, guys going for the center of greens. Like it's hard to pinpoint exactly what I want to look at. But as I think we both agree, birdie or better is kind of like the starting point for me. And that's kind of how I'll throw together my, 3 to 5 lineups.
Yeah. And if you want like course statistics and that's what you're into, I will lean heavily on almost 30% of approach shots come from 200 plus yards. That's interesting because the tour average is at 22%. That's almost an 8% difference. That's quite a lot. And so yeah. Long irons and then kind of scrambling with those long approaches. Also wedges would be important. Tour average with, under between 75 and 100 is 6%. You got almost 9% here. So long irons, short irons, that's what you really want to lean heavily on. This is a TPC course. We know there's water here. Driving accuracy is a little bit of a premium. But again, it's hard to really gauge that because on day one, your teammate can carry you. Grid regulation percentage is key. I know the golfers love that this event isn't in, I think it used to be in like June or something down in New Orleans, which is just
hot as hell.
Yeah, I'm sure they're so glad it's now in, kind of late April. But but that's all really I'm looking at. Well, look, we talked about Hovland and we talked about Cantley Alexander. Why don't you just share a few groups that your teams, I guess I should say, that got getting your eye that you may include, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I do like the Billy Ho Burns group. I think that that pairing kind of it feeds off each other really well. I expect big things, but I'm going right back to Scotty Scheffler. By the way, Ryan Palmer gets the best teammates in this event out of anybody. It's incredible.
Politicking.
Yeah, right. But I'm going to ride the Scotty Scheffler train again. Again, I think Ryan Palmer always plays well in this event. You could argue that's because he always has a great partner. But I really like the Scotty Scheffler, Ryan Palmer group. I also like Horschel Burns. I wanted your opinion on Cam Smith, Mark Leishman. Cam Smith had a bad week last week. Mark Leishman not necessarily trending greatly. Do you think that this could be the group kind of up top in the 10K range that goes the lowest owned? I know they're the defending champions, by the way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they very well could. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Speaking of recency bias, Cam's miscut at Hilton Head's gonna throw people away. Mark's not playing that well lately.
Right.
Kind of a bummer for him. So yeah, I think he'll go one of the low. That group will go one of the lowest owned. I'll kind of just share a few. I'm staying away from Scotty and Palmer's group, but I know why you like it. I want to just ditto your fact on Horschel Burns. This is a Burns course, and it's a Horschel. I mean, this is a course I just feel like made for them. Horschel, I think, has had success here before. He's won here before it was a team event. So, he obviously course history. But I really think he was a great DFS play. I want to get some extra ownerships, but it just feels like if Tommy Fleetwood is going to get a win on tour, it's going to be an event like this. Played well at Hilton Head. Sergio kind of played well at the Masters. That's a kind of a fun team right there. And the same thing for Mito. It'd be so kind of trolling for so many people that Mito get his first win at this team event. But they're popular. A lot of people are betting on them, but they're both playing well. Mito kind of is showing his potential. He played, especially the first couple of days, and Hilton Head really, really well. Good to see that. We know what Neiman's year is. Gooch Homa's group, everybody's talking about them. I will not. They're a fun play. I'm just not going to talk about it because everyone's talking about it. But I do want to get to one play in the sickle range, and that is, I'm going to scroll all the way down, and that's Kevin Chappell, who I think is
Chappie.
the Chappell with who is he with? James Hahn, I believe, is he with. So I'm a big Hahn guy. But we know with Kevin Chappell, injuries, everything. He's had a tough kind of go over the late, but turning his game around, kind of trending nicely. You're going to need, if you're going to fit some of the studs in, you're going to need a 6K team. And that's my favorite. He's coming off 2 top 20 place finishes. Chappell is. Played well at Valero. He's had good course history. But, ball striking's coming around. And he's, we're in his past before the injury, a great ball striker. That's my sicko range play. Again, not overly confident because you just don't know how both these guys are going to play well together. But what about you? If you had to finish out maybe your card or your DFS pool, what other guys or teams are you looking at?
Not quite sicko range, but I'm getting more and more intrigued by the Gim McNeely matchup. Both guys who can make birdies in bunches. I think they're right there in the mid 7,700 range. And then a little bit further down the board, our guy Matt Neesmith and Aaron Rye, both very good ball strikers. I like that as well. What about, and this is a little higher up, I think we're at 8K. I just wanted to touch on this. Adam Hadwin, Adam Svensson, both playing pretty good golf. Any interest in that team? That team may be somewhat of a highly owned team there as well. But I think recent form and kind of the way that those guys are really striking the ball approach-wise pretty well. They're an intriguing group right there at 8K for me.
Yeah, I like that, and I'm not going to talk you off it. I'm probably doing a more of a stars and scrub approach this week, just because in very small field because of the teams. 6K goes very under-owned. So if you're looking for leverage, you can just pick one 6K team, and that might be enough leverage, especially if they're under 6,600. So yeah, I'm doing a stars and scrub approach. That I might not be able to get there, but I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, and I think the stars and scrubs may just be the way to go. If you can find a team in the 6K range that can top 15 for you, I think you're in really good shape, especially if, I mean, you fully expect if you're rolling with Hovland and Morikawa, the worst they're going to do is top 10. That's the way I at least think about it. They're too talented in this field. But yeah, then if you can find somebody in the 9K range, I agree with you. Gooch and Homa will be super chalk. I did really like the Fleetwood Garcia. I know Fleetwood's playing better. Garcia has been somewhat up and down. The approach numbers for in the last 24 for Fleetwood and Garcia are actually strange to me, especially with how well Fleetwood's been playing. But if you break it down, last 5, last 12, Fleetwood's, you can see the trends there. And Sergio is just a known ball striker, right? So I think that team, they can just get some putts to roll in. That's going to be the kind of the Achilles heel. But if you give yourself enough opportunities, especially on that Thursday, Saturday best ball, again, I think it's more of a go low Thursday, Saturday, hang on Friday, Sunday, kind of keep yourself in contention. And then anything can happen in alternate shot. I think alternate shot's one of the most fun styles of golf to watch. It's my favorite in the Ryder Cup, the President's Cup. And as you probably know, you've played member gas, members. Alternate shot's always a wild time, especially when you throw golfers of the 10 to 25 handicap. Put yourself in some interesting positions, even if it's modified, which I believe it's going to be this week as well, where both guys tee off and kind of go from there. But it also brings in some strategy element, right? Where do I want you playing, right? Do I want you playing the par threes? And this week we have all 4 par threes over 200 yards. You have 4 par fours over 470 yards, which hints to your long iron play. So it'll be interesting. And I think there's lots of different ways you can take it this week. Again, how confident are you or can you be? I'm not sure if in a normal week you can kind of have data back you up a little bit, but having the element of a team game as well as the format kind of leads some, worrisome thoughts in the back of your mind come Wednesday night.
Yeah, well said. And this is an interesting stretch of golf. And I do want to piggyback off what you said about the alternate shot. In our member, which is actually the weekend of the PGA Championship, so that's going to be nuts. But we play 2 rounds before you do shootout, and for 1-9, it's Chapman alternate shot, and I love it. And that's where you both hit a drive, and then you both play each other's approach shots.
Yeah.
And then after you hit 2 shots, you pick which ball you're going to play, and it's like scramble from there. And so basically, if someone hits a green in regulation, the other person has to putt first. So it's not scramble, but you just finish it out and alternate the regular. But it's Chapman, so it's fun, and it's a great there is strategy. I think I was watching or reading somewhere that people kind of plan out. Well, I want to be driving on the par 5s, and this guy wants to make sure that he can hit the first shot on a par 3. But yeah, it's an interesting weird stretch of golf. We got the Mexico Open next week. We got Wells Fargo the week of the Kentucky Derby. That show that Monday, we're gonna do. We'll talk about the Wells Fargo, but we're gonna do a little Derby prep too. So you'll have to do your
I'll do my
Kentucky Derby research. Yeah, do your homework. Kentucky Derby. We'll give out some ponies there too. But yeah, this week is what it is. It's kind of a lighter week, so we're being lighter. Drew, anything else on your mind? You're talking about strategy style or anything else before we close up?
No, I think we kind of hit on it. You touched on the point, alternate shot. I always remember any of the member guests I played in, always be drinking beer the night before, going through the scorecard with your boy, saying, hey, where do you want to tee off? Where do I want you to tee off? It's a fun week. Again, I think your point of not overexposing yourself this week and kind of moving on. And again, we don't have to go full blown every week when we talk about how we're building our lineups and how much exposure we need. Maybe this is a good week to take a little bit of a, step back, whatever it may be. Just make sure it's fun and all within your means.
Very well said. Now, last thing I'll just say, if you are entering in the large tournaments, we say it, leave salary on the table. It's even more important maybe in weeks like this. Why? Because the field is smaller, but also we were talking before we went live, we have teams that nobody is going to roster. And so that even shrinks the field more. There's going to be so many dupes lineups. Like nobody is playing the Haas family. Like, if you're playing DA Points and you're playing Robert Garrigus and Bo Van Pelt, no, I'm not trying to hate on them, but sorry, they're not competing. And watch them get a top 5 now. I said this, but point being is leave salary on the table because people are going to try to cram in as much salary in their lineups as they can because they don't want to go down to Bo Van Pelt. So, hey, like leave salary on the table. That's the way to get contrarian if you're in the big contest. But I'm personally, it sounds like you are too, doing smaller single entry. We're saving the bankroll this week and maybe just enjoy watching a team event.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm sure we'll both have a little bit of skin in the game just to make that sweat Friday. But I will enjoy watching this one because I do like the team aspect of it. But yeah, if you're betting those guys that you mentioned, you might want to call that gambling hotline if you're going to roll with Jay and Bill Haas. But no, have fun with it. And again, I hope everybody has a fun week. And I'm excited about next week. Mexico's a good one. So we'll look forward to breaking that one down as well.
Yeah, and then we roll into Wells Fargo, which would be fun, and we go to Craig Ranch, and then Southern Hills, and that'll be great. Then things really get cooking, where it's just a couple weeks between the U.S. Open, a couple weeks between the Open.
And I've played Craig's Ranch, so I can I have a little bit of insight on that track. And then Quail Hollow is one of the best on tour. So yeah, so we're heading into some good stuff, and before we know it, we'll be talking the next major. So
no doubt about it, man. Yeah, good luck everybody this week. Drew, appreciate your time this evening.
Absolutely. Have a great night, man.